Oh my God.
Very strange.
Told you, bub.
That's spooky.
I'm so come through, Tyler.
Yes, I love it. Grandma says I.
That just blew my mind. Do you ever get sweaty when you're excited by the universe?
Oh yes, all the time. God, I sweat so much. It's the worst.
Welcome back to Kesha and the Creepies. I am so excited. I am ecstatic. I am nervous. I am feeling all the feelings to have my next guest with us, Tyler Henry. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Of course, Kesha. I wouldn't have missed it. I'm so excited for the opportunity.
Where to even begin with you? I'm so curious about your brain and who you are and how you came about your gift.
Basically, this started for me when I was actually only 10 years old. I grew up in a pretty conservative Christian household. We didn't really talk about spirits or ghosts or that kind of thing. But one night when I was 10, I woke up and I had this knowingness that my grandmother was going to pass away. And at the time, it really just kind of felt like a memory that hadn't happened yet. And it was really confusing. And so I went into the room to try to explain what I was feeling to my mom. And as I was telling her, I didn't tell her how I knew. Basically, the phone rang and we were receiving the news there that my grandmother had just taken her final breath from my dad. So that was really kind of the catalyst. But at 10 years old, it's really something that happens to you. It's not really something you identify as an ability. And so it took some time to kind of step into it.
Did you ever go through a period of time where you just went through kind of the quintessential late high school or college experience?
Sure.
Or did you just kind of skip over that period of time?
I'm besides my ability, I'm kind of boring. And so I always say what I do is the most interesting part about me because I came from a very close family. I'm an only child, so I have no siblings. And so I graduated high school when I was 16 with the goal of trying to become a hospice nurse. So I was in college and doing all of that. And then my life just kind of took this course as a medium. But I think having a strong support system did help. I have my parents actually live on the same property with me. So when I had the opportunity to buy a house, I kind of got two on one property so that they were right there and they kind of keep a close eye. And I just love it because we're all just very close. And I have to attribute that to them for kind of keeping me straight and narrow.
My mom and I are really close too. And when I went on tours, she would come with me and it was very grounding. And we have I saw your mom was driving you from one house to the next house to do your readings. And I wanted to ask you, that bond I feel is so strong and obvious when I watch your show. And I had a show a million years ago and my mom was just constantly on it too because I felt it kept me grounded. And how important is it to you to have your family with you to keep you grounded throughout all of this?
Absolutely. Yeah, that chemistry is really special too. And it's just a bond unlike any other. So I think that really helps to be able to have those support systems because you do know, as you can relate when you're in the public eye, you deal with such a variety of opinions. And in my case, being a little controversial and what I do, I guess. And so it's nice to be able to have, that kind of soft place to fall at the end of the day. And I think whether people have that in a family member or whether we create it for ourselves, it's just important to always have that kind of soft place to fall.
I had this crazy spiritual kind of psychedelic, but was not on drugs situation, experience, whatever you want to call it. Reincarnation came up a lot, for me. And I was curious of your take on that or just your thoughts.
Yeah, totally. I do find that reincarnation is referred to in readings and, people sometimes have a hard time grasping it. When we die, do we turn into a bird? And then when the bird dies, does it turn into a person or how does that work? I view really any state of existence as an incarnation. So before you were born, you were experiencing a different incarnation. When you die, even if you're not necessarily coming back to this realm, that too, in my opinion, would be a different incarnation. We kind of go through these little phases that we may call them lifetimes or different kind of states of consciousness, but I think they're ever changing, ever evolving, ever growing. And so, generally, I find that most of what gets referred to from the other side is this understanding of a collective consciousness, the idea that we are kind of all different fingers on the same hand. So, you might be the thumb, I might be the pinky, but we're connected to the same general, thing. And so everybody, being different manifestations of this collective makes reincarnation a lot more digestible, and in understanding that we literally might be reflections of ourselves. I think reincarnation gets tricky because it is kind of limited to a very linear framework. So we have, we think of, we had a lifetime in the 1600s, then maybe a lifetime in the 1700s, and so on and so forth.
Right.
But it may surpass that. I mean, who's to say we don't have lifetimes all at different time periods? Maybe we've had future lives. Who knows? But I certainly think it's a complex subject, but definitely real. And I think just reflects that we all need to be kinder to each other because we're reflections of each other.
This has been like the loveliest conversation.
Oh, I really appreciate it, genuinely.
Me too. And if you have any other burning things, like there's some sort of something flying around in my head, you can tell me. But
Will do. Yeah, I'll definitely.
Really?
We'll be in touch.
To hear the entire podcast, listen and follow Kesha and the Creepies on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.